Thank you for listening to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. This is Real Sports Talk for the Real Sports Fan, and I definitely appreciate all you Real Sports fans who are listening right now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you. Do not forget to share the podcast with your friends, all right? It's like a Thanksgiving dinner. It's not, you can't just handle it all by yourself. You got to share the real deal with everybody, all right? And if you have not given the podcast a 5-star rating, please go to your podcast app and do that. Give us that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That 5-star rating and review will definitely be appreciated. If you're listening on Spreaker Radio, on the 3-Point Conversion Station, we appreciate you just as much. And the 3-Point Conversion Station is where fans' opinions matter. So if you think the show is hot, shout it out loud. I think the show is hot and I'm proud. If you think the show can improve, please let me know how the show can improve. But don't shout it as loudly. Be a little quieter with that, because I am a gentle soul. But I do want to know your constructive criticism, because that's how I become great at this. And I want to be great at what I do. And of course, I'm always excited to talk sports with you guys. And I have a very special guest on the phone line with us today. I'm very excited. This is my Real Deal brother. He hosts a show called The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. Excellent show that's on each and every Saturday. Sometimes he might switch it up, but mostly on Saturdays. On Blog Talk Radio. You also can catch it on GoingFor2.com. This guy knows his sports. He also can, he has a diverse portfolio. He also can do other things as well. But when it comes to football, basketball, boxing, little MMA, he can touch on it all. Talking about Courtney Harden, the host of The Real Deal with Courtney Harden. How you doing today, Courtney?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking with you on your show or my show. Again, I'm excited every time we can just, the real deals, we give you the real deals any way we can. So it's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Always a pleasure to have you on. And where can people find you on social media, and where can they find the show?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. You can find me all over social media. You can find me on Twitter at Courtney110979. That's where I'm the most active. Or Facebook, just Courtney Harden. And I'm also on Instagram as well. You can find the show on, follow it on Twitter at Get The Real Deal, or you can follow it on Facebook, facebook.com/GetTheRealDeal.
Yes. Great show. Make sure you check it out. It's highly recommended. Now, I have you on today because when I first, hit you up about being a guest on the show, I wanted to count down our top 5 boxers since the year 2000. But before we get into that, there's been some big news in the football, the football realm of things. Le'Veon Bell. Some people say he's the best running back in the league. You can make some arguments for Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, but when you look at his production, he's definitely up there and may have, submitted himself as the best running back in the league by far. And this is the second year in a row where the franchise tag deal deadline has come and gone, and we don't have a long-term deal for Le'Veon Bell. Now, he will make $14.5 million this year off the franchise tag, which would be by far the most a running back will get this season. But he wants to get paid on a long-term basis at least that number, 14.5 or more per year, and get more guaranteed years than a running back would normally get. The rumors are they turned down a deal that was 5 years, $70 million, where I think the first 2 years are guaranteed. Some people are calling him greedy. Some people are saying that he's doing the right thing, fighting for his money. What side are you on? Do you think Le'Veon's being greedy? He should have took that deal that was offered to him? Or do you think he is worth more than what they are offering?
I'm actually on the side of, I'm usually on the side of the players, and I'm going to stick with this one. I'm on the side with Le'Veon Bell. As you said, he is, to me, he's the best running back in football. The production is always there. To me, he's the most versatile running back. He said, you got Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott. There's other great running backs. David Johnson before he got injured. But I think it's Bell. There's just something about him. The way he runs the football, it's almost like he's like the Matrix. He goes in there, gets that football. He seems like he waits for his blocks and then he explodes. There's just some type of play he does, the way he plays. I like what he does on the football field and catches out of the backfield like one of the best running backs we've seen ever do that. And, you know, he's got the speed, he has power, he has it all for the running back. So I'm on the side of him. And I think, you know, when players hold out or they want more money, I say they go and get their money, especially in the NFL, because a lot of that money is not guaranteed. You know, they're fighting for the guaranteed money. Now, Kirk Cousins, he proved that, you know, being franchised for a couple of years with the Redskins, it paid off for him. Now he got guaranteed money of $84 million, you know, the highest we've ever seen. So I'm all for Le'Veon Bell getting his money. Even if they have to tag him again for the third year, and I've read something that it's going to cost them over $20 million, so I don't think they want to pay him that, the Steelers. So they should definitely look into long-term deal because football shelf life is not that long. So that's why a lot of these players want that long-term deal or at least that guaranteed money because, you know, like, you know, especially with running backs, you know, the mileage issue, it's a big thing. And, you know, he's one injury away from you know, career ending. Any of these players are. So I'm all for the players trying to get that long-term deal, and I think he should definitely get it if it's going to be with the Steelers after this season or with somebody else. So, you know, a team like the Browns or the 49ers or the Jets, somebody's going to pay him a lot of money, and then I think he deserves it.
Yeah, I'm definitely right there with you. And the reason that I'm on Le'Veon's side is that he's not your normal running back, right? And a lot of people are saying the deal is going to give him the most by, you know, for a running back by far. But when you look at his impact on the game, why doesn't he get the same amount of money as some of the wide receivers are getting? When a lot of those wide receivers who are going to make more money than him will not have near the impact that he has on the game. So you think about last year, Le'Veon Bell had 406 touches between running the ball and catching the ball. 406. Your best wide receiver, no matter how good they are, your best wide receiver at maximum is going to get 110 catches, 120 at max. And even if they're as good as Antonio Brown, do they have the impact of a Le'Veon Bell? You think about what Le'Veon Bell does to a defense. If he's in the backfield, defensive coordinator, do they stack the box? They bring the safeties in? If he runs a route in the backfield, you know, a screen, wheel route, do you leave that linebacker on that island knowing that's a mismatch? Do you have a safety always there spying on him? If he splits wide, do you switch the linebacker over, back inside, bring a safety, bring a corner? It creates so many mismatches with him out there. A wide receiver, they can make a safety come over. They can make you double them. And it does open up the field a lot. But I don't understand why wide receivers have been their value has been so much more than running backs, especially all-purpose running backs. If you're a part of a committee, you're not going to get paid as much as the all-purpose guys we talked about, the Le'Veon Bells, Todd Gurley's, Ezekiel Elliott's, David Johnson's, those guys, you know, Saquon Barkley, if he's what we think he's going to be. Those type of guys are going to get the high-paid end of running backs. But if they're also catching the ball at the backfield, like a Le'Veon Bell for 75, 80 catches a year, they're getting you wide receiver production along with the running back production and blocking in the backfield, having an impact on defense that I was talking about. So I'm with him. I think he should get the money that some of those wide receivers are getting. Just to talk about some of the wide receivers that are going to get paid more than him. And it's not a shot at these guys. I think all these guys that I'm about to mention deserve to get their money. But I think Le'Veon Bell deserves to get just as much as them, if not more. Look at Mike Evans. Mike Evans is an absolute monster, right? Has had 1,000 yards each year in the league. He's getting 16.5 per year. His impact, as good as he is not going to be near the impact of Le'Veon Bell. DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, absolute beast. Probably the most underrated wide receiver in the league. He's been out here getting numbers with garbage quarterbacks like Tom Savage for years. So he's an absolute monster. Like I said, it's nothing against these guys at all. He's getting 16.2. As good as he is, does he have the impact of Le'Veon Bell? So, and just some other ones. Sammy Watkins. Come on, bro.
Right. That guy can't stay healthy. He can't stay healthy.
He can't stay healthy. and he's only had over 1,000 yards once in his career. He's a real hit or miss guy. Has the physical tools, big, run fast, can catch the ball when he's out there, but he's hit or miss. Like you said, can't stay healthy. He's getting 16 a year. Like, when you look at those type of guys getting more than Le'Veon Bell, you have to be like, okay, Le'Veon Bell has the right to try to reset the market for running backs like himself. So not only is he taking a chance on himself, he's taking a chance to reset the market. I think he's somewhat of a hero. Of course, and I'm saying that as someone in a joking fashion, he's not up there with people fighting for war and whatnot, but I'm talking about as far as a football player fighting for his money, he's a hero because he's setting the market for running backs. When Ty Gurley comes up for his deal, Ezekiel Elliott comes up for his deal, David Johnson right now is fighting for a deal. So when those guys are fighting for deals, Le'Veon Bell can set the market just like a Kirk Cousins did, because now Kirk Cousins is going to be the example that Aaron Rodgers is going to use, and other quarterbacks that come up are going to use because they know, okay, I'm better than Kirk Cousins. I can get fully guaranteed money plus whatever else, on top of that because I'm better than him. So I think Le'Veon Bell is definitely in the right to fight for more because he's more than just your running back. You shouldn't get paid by a scale of your position. You should get paid by your production.
Yep.
And with him being...
No matter what the position is, as you said, he definitely should get paid with some of the best players at any position. And just the impact of what he brings, like you said, to the Steelers, they're good at, on offense, almost like every position. Got the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, who's been contemplating retirement now, so he wants to play another 2-3 years, whatever. And then you got Antonio Brown, arguably the best wide receiver in football. So Le'Veon Bell, with him in that lineup, he makes a world of difference. Takes the pressure off of Brown, takes the pressure off of Big Ben. Just with the impact of being there, as you said. How can you guard him? What are you going to do? You're going to stack the box, or are you going to, put a safety on him or a linebacker? He's a nightmare. He's a mismatch nightmare for any defender, for a linebacker, for even a safety or a corner. You're going to have to double team him, and that's the type of impact the Steelers. So the Steelers are at a crossroads right now to what they want to do. Do you just let him go after next season because he's going to play? But then there's that question mark too: is he going to, sit out training camp? Sit out preseason because, he's upset. Now, he says he's not going to be as upset this time around because he said we try to get a deal done. But if I was him, it was been talk that he might sit out games. I know he's going to lose money, but he might sit out games because this is his future. So if he gets banged up next year, touching the ball over 400 times, catching or receiving or running, and then he gets banged up, that's more mileage on his body. So teams will be like, well, I don't know if I want to pay him $16-17 million a year, but he's such a lethal weapon. He needs to get his money now. So I hope he can get his money and then he fight for his money. I hope he doesn't sit out. I like to see him play because he's such a dynamic player, and the Steelers are so much better with him in the lineup.
Yes. I think he's going to play out this year and come in because last year, if you remember, he started off the year a little slow because he set out training camp. And even with that slow start, still got you 1,200 yards rushing, over 600 yards receiving, right? This year he comes in, does the full training camp. If he stays healthy, he gets you, 1,400 yards rushing, 600 yards receiving, get you over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Now, that next deal that he gets, because like you said, they're not going to franchise tag him a third time. That would be absolutely nuts if they did that. Because then you're like, okay, what was the point of not paying him the long-term deal if you're going to do that? So they're not going to franchise tag him a third time. He knows he's going to be a free agent. He can go out and seek that deal. He's only going to be 27 next year. So when he's going to be 27 next year, you still, with him being the type of back that he is, being so elusive and someone who doesn't take that much punishment, I would look for a deal where at least 3 years are guaranteed. And I understand, once you get to 30, running backs are, real touch and go. But at least give me those 3 years, and then after that, we can see where I'm at.
Yep, I agree. Totally agree with that. I think, give him the 3 years, see if he can get whatever guaranteed, $60-70 million guaranteed. If you upload that contract in the first 3 years, and then go from a year-to-year basis, he can still be productive in his 30s. I mean, Adrian Peterson, before the downfall, he was productive for a long time before the injuries, and then just the wear and tear on his body. Bell at least has a good 3 to 4 years left.
Yeah, we're definitely on the same page on that one. So get your money, Le'Veon Bell. running backs need to be respected more. And the league, I believe, is going to flip again. It became this super pass happy league, and defenses have caught up to that a little bit. I think we saw that a little bit last year. Like, you look at my team, the Saints. The Saints, depended on Drew Brees for so long, and still heavily do. But that running attack was our key last year. We had the two-headed monster, Ingram and Kamara. So I think the running back position is coming back, and that value is going to come back as well. And I think Le'Veon Bell is going to be the head on that attack of bringing back the value of the running back.
Totally agree. And for fantasy purposes too, it was running back before, for many years, and then the receivers, came in, Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham, for a couple of years, but now I think it's back to the running back position as the top position, even for fantasy football. So yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you on that. The running back is going to be the premium again.
Yes, sir. Now, this past Saturday night, we saw the legend, Manny Pacquiao, beat Lucas Matisse. And Matisse, he might not have shown it in that fight, but Matisse is a very good fighter, has had a very solid career, somebody who's known for his power in both hands. Good boxer as well, somebody who's not just a slugger, but he can box as well. But against Manny Pacquiao, just was outclassed. And we saw, I wouldn't say vintage, but as close to vintage as we can see from Manny Pacquiao in this stage of his career, as he got a technical knockout in the 7th round of Lucas Matisse. And it made me start to think, where does he rank when it comes to the boxers of the new century? Right? Whenever we talk about top 5 boxers, you do all time, you think about the Muhammad Ali's, the Roy Jones Jr.'s, the Sugar Ray Robinsons, Sugar Ray Leonard's, Floyd Mayweather, of course. But where does Manny Pacquiao rank among the guys in this century? And you're a big boxing fan like myself. I definitely wanted to bring you on for this to count down our top 5 boxers of the 21st century, since the year 2000, who have been the top 5 guys to put those gloves on. So I want to start, of course, with your number 5 of the top 5 boxers since the year 2000.
Yeah, I like this idea. I know we did some of these rankings before, different ones. I think we did like the greatest of all time and things like that. So this one, since the year 2000, there was a lot of boxers from 2000 till today, and it was hard to break down. But I actually got on my list. So number 5 to me is Andre Ward. 32 wins, no losses, just retired last year. 8 world titles in 2 weight classes, super middleweight, light heavyweight. He went up. The last couple fights was against Sergey Kovalev, tough light heavyweight in his own right. But Andre Ward, controversial draw the last time, the first time he fought Kovalev, and then right after that he made sure that I'm going to beat this guy now. So I got to give it to Andre Ward. He was one of the best pound fighters for such a long time. And as I said, he won super middleweight title, beating Mikhail Kessler. Then WBC champion Carl Froch, he beat him to unify the super middleweight titles to win that lineal title. Beat Chad Dawson, as well. So his resume was very good. He was intelligent, versatile, well-rounded boxer. Very good left hook. And as I said, he was one of the best pound fighters we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years. So my number 5 is Andre Ward.
Very good pick at number 5 right there. Definitely have no disagreement with that. For my number 5, I went heavyweight. A lot of people might think that since the year 2000, the heavyweight division hasn't been what it was in the 90s, 80s. Even though I think the 80s were a little overrated, but that's just me. But 90s, 80s, especially the 70s and 60s with Ali. But during the 2000s and even into the 2010s, the Klitschko brothers dominated. And it was hard for me to choose one over the other, but I went with Vladimir at number 5 because I think his resume is a little more stronger than Vitali's. Now, Vitali's has a resume that's nothing to sneeze at. But Vladimir went 64-5 over his career, pretty much held the heavyweight title all the way through the 2000s until this latest era with Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, those guys came over and took over as he got older. But you look at his career, beat Chris Bird twice, Ray Mercer, Jamil McCline, Samuel Peter twice. Now, some people may forget these names, but Samuel Peter was a guy that people were definitely afraid of. Like, this guy, Samuel Peter, was somebody who, when he rose up those ranks, I believe his name was like the Nigerian Killer or something like that, and he was just out here knocking folks out, like knocking people out cold. And he ran into Klitschko, and wasn't the same guy, but that's somebody who, before Klitschko, was out here just knocking fools out. Calvin Brock, another guy, was undefeated before he hit Klitschko. Tony Thompson beat him twice. Hakeem Rockman, we definitely know he's a quality fighter, one of the few guys to knock out Lennox Lewis. David Haye, still fighting at a quality place today. And Alexander Povetkin, who we're going to see against Anthony Joshua in September, instead of Deontay Wilder. But don't get me started on that. So, but he has a very good resume, and his longevity of dominance is why I have him in the top 5. So I got to go with Vladimir Klitschko at number 5. Who do you have at number 4?
I can't even argue with that one either with the Klitschko. Either Klitschko brothers definitely could have been top 5, top 10, but that's a good pick. Number 4 is Bernard Hopkins, middleweight, the multiple titles, I should say, world champion, 2 weight divisions, middleweight and light heavyweight again. Hopkins' resume, you talk about a resume, you're talking Felix Trinidad, Oscar De La Hoya, Roy Jones Jr., G. Pascal. The list goes on and on and on. Hopkins, he fought until he was 50 years old, over 50 years old. He held the middleweight record for most title defenses until Triple G just beat that just recently. But I had to give it to Bernard Hopkins because the man, he was a warrior in that sense where he fought everybody and anybody, and he was really tough. Born and raised in Philly. This guy, like I said, Antonio Tarver, another guy that was on his resume, Jermaine Taylor. The list goes on and on and on. We talk about resumes and longevity and everything else. This guy did it all, so I got Bernard Hopkins as number 4.
Okay, and one thing I just thought about we can add to the conversation. Is there a signature fight that stands out to you for Bernard Hopkins? Like, if you had to pick one that stood out as like, this is the fight that shows you who this guy is?
That's a good one, too. That's a good question. Just off the top, his battle with Roy Jones, even though they weren't, top-notch battle. The Oscar De La Hoya one, because he was such a big name, and where he dominated De La Hoya, I think that might have been one of his most signature wins that he had was, I guess, against Oscar De La Hoya.
That's a very good one. To the body shot heard around the world.
Yeah.
I still remember hearing Oscar and just go down.
I remember that. It's funny because I remember talking to my boys. We were watching that, and we just hear that. It's like, man, he hit him with a vicious body shot, the body snatcher. That's what that was. And De La Hoya, he could be on this list too. Not on my top 5, but he could be on this list too. But I think, that was one of the better. I think that was one of his best signature wins.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Oscar De La Hoya one. I think that was a signature win. You also can put the Felix Trinidad win in there as well, because that was the first fight where Bernard Hopkins had been fighting for a while. That's the crazy thing about Bernard Hopkins, because Bernard Hopkins is in the conversation for the 90s as well. Like, if we did a top 5 of the 90s, he's in that conversation. And also, post-2000, his longevity is nuts. And to start the 2000s, that's when he started getting those big fights that were pay-per-view fights. And I think the first one was Trinidad, which was on pay-per-view for him. And his performance against Trinidad was crazy. Trinidad is someone who was a great fighter during the 90s. 2000s kind of tailed off a little bit as he just became inactive. But after, I think that fight took a lot out of Trinidad. And Bernard Hopkins is an absolute monster. I had him at number 4 as well. Just to add to what you were saying, Trinidad, De La Hoya, William Joppy, Antonio Tarver, Winky Wright, somebody who's definitely very underrated in history. beat him as well. Kelly Pavlik, you mentioned Roy Jones, Gene Paxall, and even in his losses against Sergey Kovalev, you saw like the heart and the fact that he was fighting somebody of Kovalev's caliber at that age is crazy in itself. And that he didn't get knocked out against Kovalev speaks to how great he was and how great he was at that age. And
totally agree, man. Totally agree. He was a true warrior. Like you say, fought for so long. I think that says a lot when you go through so many of the battles he went through and won majority of them. I mean, you got to definitely give props to B-Hop.
Yes, definitely. And to go back to your number 5 pick, Andre Ward, do you have a signature fight for him that you think of that's what we're going to remember Andre Ward for?
It's interesting. I think his last fight with Kovalev might have been his signature fight because, Andre Ward, there was a lot of inactivity throughout his career, and he's undefeated. But I think he really got his props as a legit fight. He always got his props from like boxing, the heads that we are and, others are. But I think because he wasn't always on TV and, he didn't have the really big signature fights. But I think fighting Kovalev and the way he dominated him in his last fight of his career, with those vicious, another one with those vicious body shots, he kept going right to that body. Someone said it was low, but he was sitting right on the belt line, and he retired after that. He said, "I've done it all. I would have loved to see him fight Triple G, but I think that to me was probably his most signature win." And that really put him into that, as we say, that commercialism, that mainstream. Because now after that, he gets a job at ESPN. So now he's very well known. I think the Kovalev fight is probably his most signature match that he's done.
Yeah, I like that pick. If you're going to go before Kovalev, just to throw some else in there, when he fought Chad Dawson, that was huge. Because at that time,
that was huge, yep.
Chad Dawson was somebody who we thought of as like one of those guys that could be the guy. Chad Dawson had, Bernard Hopkins on his resume, and he was somebody who had power, nice skills. We didn't know he had no chin. That's what we learned against Andre Ward, is that Chad Dawson's chin was very suspect. And, that was one of his, I remember that fight being so huge at the time. But I would definitely agree with Sergey Kovalev, and I would throw Chad Dawson in there as well. Carl Froch was a big victory as well, especially when you think about how big Froch was overseas. That was a big win as well. So he has some big wins on his resume. And I'll just go ahead and say I had Andre Ward at number 3 to go ahead and get my number 3 out there. Who do you have at number 3 on your list?
My number 3 is the guy we just seen fight. He's one of my favorite all-time boxers of all time, and that's Manny Pacquiao. Got his 60th win. He's got 7 losses. This guy, just the lightweight, small as he is, this man's fought at welterweight. I can just run down 12-time world champion, only 8 division world champion boxing history. Flyweight, super bantamweight, featherweight, super featherweight, lightweight, super lightweight, welterweight, and super welterweight. And he just won his 60th win, which is unbelievable. This guy, he was just unbelievable with the stamina, footwork, punching power, hand speed, one of the fastest hands we've ever seen. And you talk about a resume: Oscar De La Hoya, Erica Morales, Juan Manuel Marquez, Sugar Shane Mosley, Miguel Cotto, Timothy Bradley, Ricky Hatton, Floyd Mayweather. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. Margarito. He was just such a future Hall of Famer, such a great fighter, and he's good for the sport too. I mean, this guy is a senator, comes back to boxing back and forth. I mean, to say you're a senator is one thing, or a country. That's saying something, man. And I mean, he was one of the greatest Comic-Con boxers of all time. He was ranked in the top one or top 2 for a long period of time. He was named Fighter of the Decade in the 2000s by Boxing Writers Associates of America. So, I mean, Manny Pacquiao's resume, it stacks up against just about anybody. So he's my number 3.
Yeah, I definitely can't disagree with that one at all. So if you had to pick, I know it's going to be hard with Manny Pacquiao. He has so many classics. If you had to pick one fight as the signature fight for Pacquiao, which one would it be?
I think, well, there's two. I think his battles with Juan Manuel Marquez, I think that has to define who Pacquiao is. Just the battles of him. Now, his last time he fought Marquez, he got knocked clean out, and I thought he was dead. I mean, they've been replaying that fight on ESPN Classics. I'm like, man, but his battles with Marquez, I think, are some of his most signature fights. And I think his battle with Miguel Cotto as well, because he took it to Cotto. I mean, and Cotto, another guy who's probably on the outside, definitely on the outside of the top five, but just retired himself, was as a warrior in his own right. But I think those two fights were his most signature fights. And it's too bad he didn't fight Floyd Mayweather 5 years ago or 6 years ago, because I think that would have been the most signature fight. But I think it's Marquez and Miguel Cotto was those two significant fights.
Yeah, the Marquez series was just nuts. We talked about it last week on our bonus episode where we talked about the most rewatchable sporting events, and I picked the fourth one as, you could pick all four, to be honest. They all were great. But the fourth one, I never forget Roy Jones. He's not getting up, Jim. He's not getting up, Jim.
They was dead. They thought it was dead. So like, this dude, he got knocked clean out. Like, yes. I mean, man, and like I said, it's one of my favorite fighters of all time to see that. Like, oh, he's done. He's done. But he's come back, and he's had some difficulties along the way. But I mean, he with a year off with that Horn fight, which was a brutal fight, he came back and won his last fight. So they're definitely he's not getting up. He's not getting up. That's a brutal fight, brutal war.
Yeah, definitely. It was a war that Pacquiao was winning until that point, and it was just crazy. So if I had to pick a signature fight for Manny Pacquiao, it's tough, man. But you could go back to those Eric Morales fights. Those were, and that's where we were like introduced to both him and Morales to the world. And those two guys went to war, man. And it's when you have so many fights you could pick from, that shows you how great a fighter this guy is. And going forward, do you think he should go out on top? He should go ahead and just make sure he's full-time senator and go ahead and just pursue politics in the Philippines? Or do you think he has something left in the tank where he can go for another big payday? What do you think Manny Pacquiao should do going forward?
I know that's the question. I know we were talking about this on Twitter with some of our other boxing guys that we've had on our shows, or just just chatting, and it's interesting that I this would get fans excited. Say, oh man, Vintage Pacquiao is back. I think he needs time off to really refresh and be able to fight like this, because he looked very quick, very fast. He showed enough power, and like he hasn't had a knockout since the Miguel Cotto fight. That was in 2009. So it's been over almost 10 years that he's had that he's had a knockout. So does he have the power to go against those big time welterweights, the Crawfords, Errol Spences? I don't think so. I don't think those type of fights. I like the Lomachenko idea. I've been saying it for a while. I probably said it on my show with you, and I think that could be a big time fight. Now, does Lomachenko want to take that fight? I don't know if he wants to go with that, but that'd be good on his resume too. But I think Pacquiao might need two more fights, get those two big money fights, and I think Lomachenko's got to be one of them. So I think Lomachenko might be the fight that would get fans excited about, and I think that should be the next fight.
That's a very good case. The only thing with Lomachenko, I know Lomachenko is trying to make a name in America, and Manny Pacquiao right now is trying to avoid America because he has the tax issues.
Right.
So I don't know where they would have the fight at, because I'm trying to remember, where's Lomachenko from? The country he's from isn't going to be one that would hold a fight of that nature. Because I can't remember the country he's from. So where would you have the fight? Would you have it in the Philippines? Would they just try to meet in the middle, have it in England somewhere? Because in England they could have that type of fight, could sell out a stadium of 80,000 in England. So that would be some logistics you would have to figure out with that fight. But I think that's a very interesting one because I don't think Pacquiao would have a problem dropping to 140 to fight Lomachenko. And, Lomachenko just came up to 140 for this last fight. I think that's a very interesting one. Somebody brought up Amir Khan in the conversation we were having on Twitter. Amir Khan does have a name, right? Doesn't have a chin. So that could be one that Pacquiao could win. He could get that one punch to knock Amir Khan out. And it would be exciting because Amir Khan does have hand speed. He's a very good boxer. So it's not a cupcake victory if he beats Amir Khan. I don't think he wants Crawford. I don't know if he wants to deal with somebody the size of Crawford. Because you think about what Horn was able to do to Pacquiao. I believe Pacquiao won that fight. But Horn was able to give Pacquiao trouble because of his size. He was just able to lay on him and bully him and do all this stuff. Horn tried to do that to Horn tried to do that to Crawford, And Crawford just was like, okay, no, I'm going to sling you off me. I'm strong enough to sling you off me and continue boxing you. I'm going to box you up this whole fight. You're not going to be able to wrestle with me. I'm just going to push you off. So if Crawford's able to do that to Horn, with Horn's size, Crawford is naturally, I don't know if he's bigger than Pacquiao. I think he's definitely longer than Pacquiao. So I think with his boxing skills and length, that can give Pacquiao trouble at this stage of his career. It'd be interesting. He'd definitely make good money from it, but he could get knocked out. And I don't know if he wants to take that chance. He definitely should not fight against Errol Spence. I think that's a no-no. Because Errol Spence is somebody who is packing that power. Errol Spence is also a southpaw, so he doesn't have that advantage that he has against most people where he's having that southpaw, that weird stance, that weird style that he has, throws people off from the southpaw stance. It's not going to throw off Errol Spence because he's southpaw too. And Crawford is someone who can fight at southpaw just as well as he does orthodox. So I think those two fights are off the table. Keith Thurman. I think that's interesting. Keith Thurman's been off for a while. Someone who, has been kind of dealing with injury. So Keith Thurman, I think he has a tune-up fight in August. He does his tune-up fight against, some no-name, just trying to get himself ready to go. Early next year, him and Pacquiao could be a huge money fight. And Pacquiao may feel he can take out somebody like a Keith Thurman. Even though Keith Thurman does have power, his name is one time. But he hasn't knocked out somebody in a while either. Ever since he's moved up to his upper tier competition, it's been a little hard for him to get those knockouts. So does Pacquiao feel comfortable in that fight? But again, Keith Thurman is someone who's trying to make his name here in America. Does he go outside of America to make this fight happen? So there's logistics that will get in the way. But I do think he can make one or two big fights. We know he needs the money. And that's the thing. I don't even know if he needs the money. I don't know if he's broke or he's just trying to avoid paying taxes. I think it's a little combination of both.
I think so too. I don't know if he's broke either. You read the story that he might be broke. That's why he's got to fight. But it's almost like, well, I don't want to fight in the States anymore. So I'll play in the Philippines or overseas somewhere. And now think of it, Pacquiao is his own promoter right now. So with the senator job, so all that's got to factor in. So he probably, like I said, we won't see Pacquiao fight until next year this time again. So yeah, it's all the logistics and everything. They have to figure that out. But it's been, like I said, over a year. If he gets another year, maybe not so much wear and tear anymore, and then he'll be fresh because he looked really very fresh in this last fight.
He did. He definitely looked very fresh. The legs were back. He was back doing the feints in and out of the pocket, and Matisse had no answer. Like poor Matisse, he's somebody who needs the person to be in front of him to do what he does, and Pacquiao was just never in front of him. The whole fight, he was just never there. So, but just to piggyback off of you, I had Manny Pacquiao number 2. All the things you said, we agree on. He has so many fights, it's hard to pick a signature fight for him. 60 wins is a very tough number to get to in boxing. That speaks to his longevity. The man's been boxing his whole adult life. He's been boxing longer than he's been doing anything else in life, which is crazy to think about. And it's amazing to see him do this at 39. Amazing career. So I have him at number 2 on my list. Who do you have at number 2?
Number 2, this is a guy, he fought in the 90s and in the 2000s. I got Roy Jones Jr. As my number 2. 6-time world champion, 4 different weight classes, middleweight, super middleweight, light heavyweight, and heavyweight. And this guy started his career in 1988. So that's what's so crazy. And the 66 wins is huge for him. Resume, Bernard Hopkins, Montel Griffin, Antonio Tarver, just to name a few. This guy was a beast, and then he moved up to heavyweight, fought John Ruiz, beat him. He fought James Toney. This guy had speed, athleticism, cat-like reflexes, with power, defense. I mean, he was arrogant, he was cocky, but the man got the job done. So I've always loved Roy Jones Jr. I know he's fought a decade in the 90s, but he definitely fought within the 2000s and beyond. Now he's a great commentator, on HBO. So yeah, I got Roy Jones as my number 2.
That's a very interesting pick. I thought about Roy Jones. Roy Jones is my favorite boxer of all time. The reason I fell in love with boxing is Roy Jones. The reason I didn't pick Roy Jones is because he lost to Tarver in 2004. And then we saw him lose to Glenn Johnson. And then also we saw him, take a lot of losses later in his career that I don't really count the ones after, like Joe Calzaghe. I don't really count those. Because it seemed like he just was out there fighting and shouldn't have been at all. But,
right.
But in the 2000s, we saw him become human, right? Now, he does have some great victories in the 2000s. You mentioned when he went up to heavyweight against John Ruiz. He also had some good victories in the 2000s at light heavyweight as well. But when you think of Roy Jones, most of the things you think about were 90s, right? Even if you pick a signature fight for Roy, it might be the John Ruiz fight. What would be your signature fight for Roy Jones that you would pick?
It would be that one. I think, at that time, as you said, he was fighter of the year, of the decade, I should say, of the 90s. And then he went, because he dominated in the 90s with the speed and athleticism and all the movements and just the way how he used to go in and out, just do things with his hands down, but then had that pound for pound, fighter at the time. But when he went to heavyweight in 2003 to fight Ruiz and beat him, dominate him in the heavyweight, and Ruiz had him by multiple, 30, 40 pounds, maybe more.
Yeah.
I think that would be his most significant fight, and that was, like I said, that was in the 2000s. But I get the argument too because he dominated in the 90s. That was his most best run. But those years, the early 2000s, I'd have to go Roy Jones with fighting John Ruiz and beating him in the heavyweight division as his most significant fight.
Yeah, I would pick that as a signature fight as well. You also can go with the James Toney one. That would be in the 90s, but that was definitely a big victory for him, especially with James Toney being someone who, at that time, was coming in undefeated, very slick boxer, and the athleticism of Roy Jones took over that fight. And also, for me, I have to go Virgil Hill. Never forget him, breaking Virgil Hill's rib with a body shot. That was, for me, there's a little theme here. I love body shots. And when somebody can knock out somebody with a body shot, it's just phenomenal, especially the way Virgil Hill went down. And so he has a lot of signature fights. Like I said, I'm not mad at the pick. I just couldn't pick it because he had, in the 2000s, his run was short-lived due to the knockout loss to Tarver, knockout loss to Glenn Johnson. He also lost to Joe Calzaghe a little later on in the 2000s. So I understand the pick. I just couldn't go with it because I thought, the 90s was definitely Roy Jones' time.
Right.
So now it's time for our number 1 pick. I believe we have the same number 1 pick, so I'm going to let you go ahead and tell us who your number 1 is.
I mean, you got to go with this guy, Floyd Mayweather Jr., 50-0. I know the 50th win is a question mark because, he fought a UFC fighter, but he's still 50-0, 27 knockouts. I mean, this guy, the best defensive fighter of all time. This guy, he was, we talk about, super featherweight, lightweight, super lightweight, junior welterweight, super welterweight. The list goes on and on. mean, one of the greatest fighters of all time, pound for pound, over the last 25 years. He just did it all. He, the technique, the skill set, that shoulder roll, you talk about hand speed, counter punching ability. One of the smartest fighters we've ever seen. Everybody always talk about he never fought anybody, but let's see. Manny Pacquiao, Cotto, Sugar Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So, Arturo Gatti, he fought just about everybody that was put in front of him, and he just beat them. He beat them, period. And one of the richest fighters we've seen too. He's a self-promoter. So I got to give it to Floyd Mayweather Jr. as the number one.
Okay. And for a signature fight from Floyd Mayweather, which one would you pick?
This is a hard one. This one I might have to go with. I think the interesting thing is Sugar Shane Mosley, because at this point in Floyd Mayweather's career, a lot of people were saying he didn't fight anybody. Okay, so he fights Sugar Shane Mosley, a guy that has significant power, the guy that actually gave him some trouble, because a lot of these fighters did not get Floyd Mayweather any trouble because he figured them out by the third, fourth round. You're beat. You're done. So Sugar Shane, first few rounds, thought he had Floyd. I thought he had Floyd. Like, oh, Floyd's going down. But it was a clinic right after that. I think that was a significant fight. I thought the Canelo Alvarez one was a very significant fight in Floyd's career, because this is when Canelo is on the come up, and Canelo, as we know, he's one of the best fighters today. And Floyd Mayweather schooled him. I mean, that was a boxing clinic. He really put those paws on Canelo and really tore him up. And he gave him a world class beating, and he just took it to him. So I think those two fights, off the top of my head, I think those are the two of the most significant fights in Floyd's career.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I got Floyd at number one as well, of course. Just to add to what you were saying, to say he didn't fight anybody is just ridiculous. The guy who gave Manny Pacquiao the most trouble, Juan Manuel Marquez, Floyd Mayweather literally beat him 12 rounds to nothing. Like, he beat beat Juan Manuel Marquez 12 rounds to nothing. I think that's one of his signature fights as well. You look at that fight, and you'll still see the highlight packages if you ever go on YouTube and just watch Floyd Mayweather highlights. You'll see one where Juan Manuel Marquez throws a jab, throws a straight right, throws another left hook. Floyd dodges all three punches, hits him, turns out, and just looks at him. And it's just... and that's just, it had to be demoralizing for Juan, because Floyd was bigger, faster, stronger, just had all the advantages. And it's the thing, Floyd is when you're talking generally, he's a small guy. 5'8", 5'9" at most, 100. He walks around at 147. He probably weighs 147 right now. Like, he's always just around that weight. And the fact that whenever he fought against Manny Pacquiao, he seemed just so much bigger and still was the faster, quicker guy. And he has that technique of the shoulder roll you talked about. And I think we saw his best technique fight, like the most technically sound I've ever seen him was against Canelo. You think about the fact that Canelo fights at 160 right now. So you knew he was already way bigger than Floyd even then. At 23 years old, it was a struggle for Canelo to make welterweight weight. So he was the much bigger fighter, much stronger, younger, hungry, and Floyd just took him to school. And for 12 rounds, man, just took this guy to school. And a lot of people will say Floyd runs. He made, I believe in this fight, it was his intention to stay in the pocket against Canelo. He literally stayed in the pocket, only moved every once in a while to dodge a punch, but was right back in the pocket, and at times was backing Canelo down. And whenever people say, Floyd's a runner, I point to that fight because this is older Floyd as well. Like, we all know younger Floyd, before all the hand damage, was much more aggressive offensively. But in this fight, he was like, okay, I'm going to show you guys how great I really am. You guys got this young guy that you really believe in, who's arguably the pound for pound best right now. If he beats Triple G, he'll have that title. If he can beat Canelo like that, definitely a signature victory. Like, just beast.
Yeah, and that Canelo fight, as you said, that was just, as you said, Floyd, that's them being a technician. That's why, to me, he was one of the smartest fighters we've ever seen. Now, we've had some smart fighters, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Muhammad Ali was a smart fighter, and even Mike Tyson, you know, these guys were very smart. But Floyd, you know, he went in there, and you said the people who say he runs all the time and he ducks and dodges and he doesn't want to engage. So, yeah, he stayed in that pocket with a bigger, stronger fighter in Canelo, and he just went to work on him. He definitely, he was like a definition of like a basketball player who could get whatever he wants. Okay, like a Kevin Durant, for example, could get whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and scoring-wise, could do it whatever. He said, okay, you guys want to take my drive away? Okay, I can beat you with jump shots. I can beat you in the post. I can beat you this way. And Michael Jordan was the same way, just a smart, cerebral player. That's what Floyd Mayweather was. Just so, you know, if you want to take one part of my game away or one part of my technique away, I can go to this and I can go to this and still be better than most or all. And that's what Floyd Mayweather did. And that's what he did in this fight against Canelo. Even the Cotto fight, Cotto was trying to rough him up, kind of like we talk about Horn and Pacquiao. You know, Cotto was very strong, but Floyd just basically said, okay, you want to try to fight dirty, you want to fight this way, I can fight this way too. I have to show you my defensive skills and my smarts and this hand speed and just touch you up the way I can. And he brutally beat Cotto too. So yeah, those are just some of the, you know, attributes that Floyd does have. You know, he's just like he's like a Michael Jordan in a way where he's very cerebral and smart and can beat you in so many ways. And he did that with Conor McGregor too. You know, McGregor's not a boxer whatsoever, but he beat the brakes off of Conor, which we knew he would do. But he just said, okay, I'm gonna let Conor get all this, you know, get all this in the first 4 or 5 rounds, all this energy, because I know he doesn't have the stamina to stay with me for 12 rounds. So let him get his in the first 3, 4 rounds. That's what he's used to doing in the octagon, and I'm gonna go to work on him. And you know, then he beat him up. He just beat him up for, you know, it was 8th, 9th round. He you know, the stoppage. So that's what makes, to me, Floyd one of the most dangerous fighters we've seen over the last 20 years.
Yeah, I remember watching the Andre Berto interview, and Berto talked about fighting against Floyd. He fought against Floyd in his last fight against a boxer, and he talked about how observant Floyd was. Like, if you watch Floyd in a corner, he's looking around the whole time, seeing who's in the crowd, seeing what's going on. And then when you're in the ring with him, you just see, he sees everything. And he was like, Floyd, of course, doesn't punch powerful, but it's just real sharp. So no matter how, you know, much power he may lack, if he's hitting you right in the nose or right in the eye, right in the chin, it's gonna hurt. He's like, every time, he's like it just pow, just pop 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 pop. He's like, and next thing you know, he's gone. You're trying to find him after you got hit 2 or 3 times, and then, you know, he might grab you real quick, hold you. He takes 2 deep breaths, gets his energy back, and he's back to boxing you. And he's like, it's just so frustrating to fight somebody who's just that cerebral in the ring. Floyd, man. And for my signature fight, Canelo's one. Canelo would be the later half career one. I think of Floyd as 2 different people: Pretty Boy and Money.
Yeah, right.
So for Money, I would go with the Canelo fight. For Pretty Boy, I'm gonna go with Arturo Gatti. The beating he put on Arturo Gatti, who's a legend, rest in peace, somebody who definitely had no quit in him. He whooped Arturo Gatti, man. It was, man, it just was bad.
He destroyed him, man.
Yeah,
that's a Hall of Famer. That's a Hall of Famer, man. Arturo Gatti, Hall of Famer.
Yes,
he destroyed him.
Destroyed Arturo Gatti to the point where, like I said, Arturo Gatti had no quit in him, but the corner was like, "Hey, it's over. Like, we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna go ahead and save our fighter. We know he don't want to quit, but we're gonna quit for you, dog, because this just ain't cool to watch no more. Like, it's just. And this is younger Floyd before all the hand stuff, and he was just whooping on him. Body shots, head shots. And anytime Arturo Gatti would try to swing back, he was out of the way already. So the reflexes, everything, man. It just, you got to put Floyd up there as number one since 2000. He's up there when you talk about all time. He's in the conversation. He has to be. Someone who's that's dominant over his career, who has that list that you mentioned of all the fighters he beat. Even to add to that list, you talk about Arturo Gatti, Jose Luis Castillo, one of the all-time greats that he beat. Diego Corrales, that's another signature fight. Diego Corrales was undefeated. Diego Corrales was undefeated, knocking fools out. Floyd Mayweather came and dominated him, knocked him down like 6-7 times in the fight, to the point they're like, okay, it's over. We got to go ahead and end this. Ricky Hatton, undefeated before he fought Floyd. And that was, he hit him with a check left hook, made him fall forward into the ring post. And that's how he got knocked out. So when you talk about Floyd, man, just so many great fights. I think people who do not get it need to go back and watch those fights that we talked about. Me and Rashawn talked about it a little bit last week. 3 fights you need to watch. Him versus Canelo, Arturo Gatti, Diego Corrales. Those fights, and I would add Juan Manuel Marquez as well. Those fights are him at his best. Him saying, maybe I got something to prove tonight. When he thought he had something to prove, it was just, unstoppable how his technique was. Against Pacquiao, he came out very technique-wise, just great. Defensively, he was awesome, and threw his jab a lot more in that fight, which is something we didn't see from him, just to throw Pacquiao off. It's just little subtle things that he would do against fighters that made him the best, man. So, can you recap your top 5 for the people, please?
Yes, I can. Top 5. First was number 5 was Andre Ward. Number 4, Bernard Hopkins. Number 3, Manny Pacquiao. Number 2, Roy Jones Jr. And number 1, Floyd Mayweather. And just to, you said, just to add with Floyd, a couple more fighters. Zab Judah. And remember, Zab Judah was another guy that everybody thought was going to be the next best. And Floyd dominated him. So you get the list. De La Hoya, as we said, Hall of Famer. Floyd dominated him. I mean, literally destroyed De La Hoya, and it was just Floyd's, like I say, he's in the conversation as one of the greatest of all time.
Definitely. To recap my top 5, number 5, I went with Vladimir Klitschko, dominated for such a long time. 4, Bernard Hopkins, the Executioner. 3, Andre Ward. 2, Manny Pacquiao. 1, Floyd Mayweather. So who were some of the guys that you struggled with? Who are your honorable mention guys?
A couple of my honorable mention guys was Canelo, as we talked about. Triple G. I think if he beats Canelo and really gets that significant, that signature win, I think he might have to move up on that list. We talked about the Klitschko brothers. I thought they were honorable mention as well. So those are some of the names that I had left off my list.
Yeah, Triple G is somebody who I thought about really hard. He's getting more victories now to add to his list, like the Danny Jacobs was a really big one. Canelo, which, a lot of people thought he won that fight but ended in a draw. So if he beats Canelo in September, I think that definitely would add to his legacy. But he doesn't have the big names, unfortunately, that other guys have. Winky Wright, I think Winky Wright's somebody who's just underrated in history. You think about how good he was. He had those super long arms where he had to do that peekaboo block defense, and you literally couldn't hit him anywhere. He was somebody. You think about the way he beat Sugar Shane Mosley, and some of the other people that he beat during his career. He was able to be dominant with his technique. Sugar Shane Mosley, he's up there.
Yes.
Somebody who's in the conversation for greatest lightweight of all time. He was undefeated at the lightweight division, went up to welterweight, and got some good victories over Oscar De La Hoya, and there's some classic battles with, Fernando Vargas. Some big victories there. He had some losses to some of the bigger guys. It was the big guys with technique like Winky Wright, Vernon Forrest, rest in peace. Those guys gave Sugar Shane some difficulty, but you think about him at the lightweight division, just dominant with his speed and power. So he's definitely in that conversation as well. The 2000s leading up to now were great, man. And boxing is in a very good place talent-wise. A lot of great talent, man. And before we go, man, I gotta get your take on the whole Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder situation. I mentioned earlier that Anthony Joshua is going to be fighting Alexander Povetkin in September, and Deontay Wilder is probably going to fight somebody else like a Brazil, someone like that. Do you think Anthony Joshua and his camp are running from Deontay Wilder?
I didn't think so. When they were trying to negotiate something, and with this fight, they want to fight in England or wherever. And Deontay Wilder even said he'll fight. It'll be two fight. Be two fights. It'll be one in in England or one and then one in the States. But Joshua doesn't want to. He doesn't seem like he wants to leave anyway. He doesn't want to come to the United States at all. It's a tough situation because we want to see the fight, maybe the logistics, as we talked about with a lot of these other super fights that we, possibly could talk about. It always comes down to money, ego, and logistics. It seems like that's what it always comes down to. I know it's a business, and you want at the right time. This is the right time. It needs to be done very soon. I think it needs to be done like immediately. I know now they're saying that they can fight next year, next April, which is a pretty long time. So yeah, I do think Joshua has a little bit of. I think he's a little shook. I think now he wants to make sure that when Wilder fights, maybe he loses, but it doesn't have that significance anymore. You're both undefeated. You guys are both of the best heavyweights in the world. Let's get this fight going. And I think there's a little bit of he's shook. Joshua's a little bit shook, but I think eventually it's going to happen because it all makes sense. The money's there. The money's right. It's just like Triple G and Canelo. At the time, Triple G said he was done, but he knows this is a big money fight, no matter what we feel about Canelo and the cheating and all that. But this fight makes sense. So this Joshua and Wilder makes sense. So I do think this fight will happen. Hopefully it happens next year, and hopefully Joshua isn't scared, and maybe he can go in there and do his thing that we know he's capable of. So, but I think he has a little bit of shakiness in him. Like I don't know if I want to fight Wilder. So yeah, I do believe he's a little shook, but I think it'll eventually happen.
Yeah, I'm just like you in this case. I didn't think he was scared or his camp was scared. I thought, okay, there's a lot of negotiation going on. But then when you see Wilder pretty much give up in every part of the negotiation to make this fight happen, and then it still doesn't happen, it's like, come on, man. Like, well, all the evidence points to you being scared. When I saw an interview with him, or a little piece of an interview where they asked him, what's going on with the Deontay Wilder situation? Are you guys going to fight soon? And he was like, we'll fight when we fight. If it's next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, I just got to make sure it's right for my career. Which, again, is fancy talk for, I'm scared. That's what it pretty much is.
Right.
So now I have to believe, like I said, because all the evidence, Deontay Wilder was like, okay, we're going to fight over in England. Because he knew fighting over in England, he's going to make more money anyway. So I think that part of negotiation wasn't going to be that hard. We could fight over in England, and then if we have a rematch, it'll be over in the United States. I think that's the easy part of negotiation. Fight in England. You want $50 million up front? We got you $50 million up front. Like, they made that happen. You want to get a bigger share of the pay-per-view revenue? Gave that to them too. So at this point, you're running. Like, we made everything happen. I watched this show on ESPN Plus called In This Corner, which is a boxing show they do like I think it's like bi-weekly. And they were talking about the situation, and they were saying Wilder was ready to take a bad deal for him. Like, it pretty much was going to be a bad deal on paper for Wilder to take what they were offering going forward to do it this year. And if the fighter's willing to take a bad deal to make it happen, because he's probably figuring he'll make up the money after he beats Joshua, because in his mind, he probably thinks he's going to knock out Joshua. So he's like, after I beat Joshua, I'll become the undisputed guy. I'll gain fans from England. I'll make up all that money on the back end. But he's willing to take a bad deal to make it happen. And you guys still didn't take it? Yeah, bro. It just seems like you're scared. It seems like you're scared. And you're like, and the reason I feel he can do it is because he literally can afford to. Because over in England, as long as he's fighting, decent competition, he's going to make 10 to 15 million a fight. He's going to be able to sell out 80,000 seat stadiums because they support him so much. And he's like, okay, I don't have to fight Deontay Wilder. I can fight whoever. I can fight Povetkin. I can fight a David Haye, or I can fight someone else again, because they know as long as it's decent competition, I'll make 10 to 15 million. Unfortunately, Wilder doesn't have that option. Wilder, I believe the most he's made in his career so far is like 2.5. Because unfortunately here, we don't support our boxers the way they do over there. Like over here, you have to be to the level of Floyd Mayweather to get that crazy support. You know, I wish we supported him more. But overseas, boxing is the second biggest sport behind, soccer. So they're going to get more support over there. So hopefully they get together and make it happen. Hopefully people like me and you calling out Joshua makes it happen. Hopefully if he's listening to this, we're calling you out. We're saying you're scared. Go ahead and fight Wilder and make it happen. We don't want this to be another Pacquiao-Mayweather situation where it happens 5 years too late. Both you guys right now are in their primes. And the thing is, I wonder if he's waiting for Wilder to slow down, because Wilder is older than Joshua, because Joshua, I believe, just turned 28. And Wilder, I want to say, is 31, 32, if I'm correct.
I think so, yeah. Yep.
So he may be waiting, saying, okay, let me get this guy at 33, 34, and he's not as powerful as he is now. Because the crazy thing is, if they fought right now, I would pick Joshua because Joshua has a better technique. Now, Wilder, I believe, is the more powerful puncher of the two. But because Wilder is so wild, I think Joshua could catch him and maybe knock him out. But now, I don't know if Joshua has the mentality. So because he's running, that kind of changes my pick a little bit. How do you feel about that? Who would you pick if they fought right now?
I agree. I would have picked Joshua a year ago, or even, 3-4 months ago. But as you said, Wilder, he does have that power in both hands, and he's one of those guys that you just never know what type of fighter you're going to get. Is he going to be the guy that's going to throw wild punches? But then when he throws those wild punches, he connects. Joshua might not have that mentality anymore, or he's just playing around. Maybe he's just saying, I'm going to have Wilder just keep getting these fights, getting into these brutal fights, and then when it's time to pick him apart, I'll do it. I think Joshua still can win because I think he's the more I don't think he's the more powerful puncher, but he's definitely more technique than Wilder. And then as Wilder, he comes in, very wild and just out of ordinary, he'll get caught. Now Joshua does have power. He definitely does have some power, but I think he would catch Wilder in one of those wild punches that Wilder likes to throw. But Wilder catches Joshua one of those punches, it could be night. It could be good night. But I would still pick Joshua over him just because I think he is still the better fighter, the better all-around fighter, more technician of a fighter than Wilder.
True. And the thing is, we've seen both of them hurt. We've seen Joshua go down against Klitschko. We've seen Wilder get hurt against Ortiz. So we know that they are both, not like a Triple G. We haven't seen Triple G hurt. Like, we don't know if this guy's chin is literally made out of cement or whatever. He literally doesn't get hurt. So these two guys, we know both of them have the ability to knock the other one out. So I think it'll be a very interesting fight. Hopefully Joshua gets past Povetkin. Povetkin is a good opponent. Don't get me wrong. He's only lost to Vladimir Klitschko. So he does have a good resume, but he's older. He's already 38. So when you have somebody of that age going against a guy in his prime like Joshua, you gotta expect Joshua to go ahead and take that home. But boxing is boxing. You never can, predict it in such a matter-of-fact way because it only takes one punch, especially at the heavyweight division. Povetkin can hit him one time, it could be over. So hopefully they both get past their next guys. We see it early next year. I enjoyed talking boxing with you, man. Definitely loved this episode. Hopefully you had a good time.
I definitely did. Anytime, man, we can talk boxing. We got all of our other guys, Wood and Rashawn. Shout out to those guys, and I always put together a boxing roundtable when there's significant fights or some news. So I love talking boxing with you as well, man.
Definitely. And one more time, where can people follow you and find your show?
Yep, you can follow me on Twitter at Courtney110979 or Facebook. Just look me up, Courtney Harden. That's Harden. You can also follow me on Instagram, and you can follow the show, which airs on Saturdays. Follow it on Twitter at Get the Real Deal, or you could also check it out on blogtalkradio.com/momentum shift or goingfor2.com. It's on Saturdays, usually at noon, as you said earlier in the show. Sometimes I bounce around. I know you've been on my show on a Wednesday, depending on what's going on. There's a draft, or is draft preview, or NBA Finals preview, or football preview. It doesn't matter. So I just bounce around. So just follow me on Twitter and Facebook and get all the updates.
Yes, do that. Okay. Go ahead and follow me at The Real Deal WDA. That's on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. Follow me on Instagram. It's much more than just sports. You might catch me singing Britney Spears. You might catch me dancing while I'm Ubering. You might catch a crazy Uber story. You never know what you're going to see on there. On the YouTube channel, The Real Deal with Damian Adams is starting to take off a little bit. Go ahead and subscribe to that. The Manny Pacquiao video I did after the fight kind of took off a little bit. I was really surprised by that. So I definitely appreciate that support. Thank you guys for listening to The Real Deal with Damian Adams. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends. And until next time, go real or go home.